Coming up on show 541, the Jaguar Electric XJ. More games to play inside your Tesla. We'll answer this week's question of the week coming up as well. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening around the world. Welcome to Evie News Daily, Sunday edition today. I'm actually recording this on a Monday because I'm so late to get around to doing this. My name is Martin Lee. I go through every Evie story that you might not have time to get to every day. It's so good to be back. I last spoke to you Friday. Saturday was, oh goodness, I missed Saturday, missed Sunday, which is why I'm doing Sunday show half a day late. For those that don't know, I'll fill you in on the story at the end of the podcast. Thank you as always to myev.com for helping make this show. They've got a bit on their Facebook description that I think sums them up really nicely. They say, people before profits. They are a completely free service to connect people who want to buy and sell EVs in the USA because they just want to see EVs get more popular. They've made this wonderful marketplace. Go and play with it. Try it. Let me know what you think. Check out myev.com. Hey, thank you very much to a brand new Patreon supporter of this show. It means so much that individuals put their hand in their pocket on Patreon. Thank you to Peter LEECH. This show, by the way, I mean, it's coming from a hotel room in central London where the windows don't particularly close very well. But hey, you pays your £45 for a room, you get what you get. I'm on the flight path into Heathrow, if you can hear planes going across. I am directly overhead a train line. I'm literally outside my bedroom window is the train station, which I can't make any quieter. It sounds like I'm in a toilet, and I forgot the little fluffy thing for the end of my microphone, so apologies if I can't use my mic very well today. Let's get on to the news then. If we can get to the end, it'll be a triumph through adversity. We'll start with MG, and MG already received over 750 orders for the ZS EV, which is the new name for the EZS. The ZS EV here in the UK. It had a really good reception, and 750 orders so far. That's in about a week or so since the official launch, but it's been bubbling up already. People have been calling dealers and offering just to put money down because they really want to get hold of this car. It's an affordable family SUV made by MG, in other words, aka SAIC, who are a Chinese company who bought the MG brand. The base model, by the way, starts at $21,495, which if you do a crude conversion is almost 24,000 euros, $26,500. You can't do that because we have 20% VAT added to pretty much everything apart from some essentials with either reduced or no tax. So we always have that 20% tax on any goods and services. So you can't quite do a conversion. But I'll give you the pounds. The Excite model 21.5, the exclusive model 23.5. It's a car that's going to do 163 miles, they say, on WLTP, 44.5 kilowatt hour, liquid cooled battery pack with the cells coming from CATL. So the tech is good, right? 0 to 60, 8.5 seconds and 105 kilowatt electric motor. None of that is going to blow anybody away. But here's the thing. None of that is anything to be ashamed by. They're all good stats. We like those a lot. 750 people have put their name, their deposit. Have you had to pay a deposit? And you have, yes, you have had to put money down now to actually get in line for one of these. The government give you £3,500 and MG give you £3,500 for the first 1,000 people. Moving on to Jaguar, and the XJ has been shown to jurors of the World Car of the Year. When it comes to new products, Jaguar has a bright future coming up ahead of it, it says, with plenty of new models to come and a pure EV version of the next generation XJ. That is definitely going to be something that is going to get the judges very interested, get them all excited. The previous production version of the XJ went out of production at the beginning of July. Now, the car won't be revealed anytime soon, so it goes without saying there are no official images of this car at the time of recording this podcast. However, it was shown to a few select people, and by all accounts, it's set to be a cracking car. Jaguar moving into EVs at a reasonable pace. They did beat everybody else to market apart from Tesla, which is the usual caveat I have to give, with the I-Pace, a very, very nice car. One of their competitors that makes the e-tron, the e-tron, is the e-tron, no accent. Audi is expanding its electric motor production at Győr in Hungary. Their plant there is going to produce more electric motors and a new generation of motors as well. They started production this time last year at that facility as electrification moves forward, says Inside EVs. The German manufacturer has announced the continuation of e-transformation. The Hungarian plant, says Mark Kane, was initially able to make 400 motors a day. Of course, if you're making a dual motor car, only half of those go towards making a car. New generation of electric motors and the new expanded facility making even more electric motors. This is all good news. Good news for investment, good news for jobs, good news for EV fans like you and I, and more EVs going on sale. I don't know if you can hear that. As another train just rolls past the station. Yeah. This is not the most expensive hotel I could have stayed in. I'm on a budget. Let's talk about the games that you can play inside a Tesla. The Tesla Arcade is adding chess and dual controller support for Beach Buggy Racing 2. Have you played Beach Buggy Racing 2 with the steering wheel and the brake pedal inside your Tesla yet? I have. And I bloomin' love it. However, now it's expanding its list of games, and they announced it with a really interesting video that's about a minute long. They tweeted this out: when your car can do 0 to 60 faster than you can make your next move, we call that checkmate. Chess begins rolling out to Tesla Arcade globally today, says the tweet, but it also is accompanied by a video that's brilliant. It's set... Well, who knows where it's set, but it looks like it's set in the Wild West. And there's a female character who's wearing a cowboy hat, and she's got the gun round her waist, and there's close-ups of her fingers, just like tapping the trigger of the gun. Like a Clint Eastwood movie would be like whoever draws first, and she's a few paces away from a Tesla Model 3, and she's facing it. And, of course, the whole thing is like your move. It's chess, your move. But they've applied that to a kind of cowboy thing, which is like super, super brilliant to do. You don't see Tesla doing this too much. They've had some fan-generated content, some user-generated content over the years. But maybe this is just another sign of Tesla just getting a little bit more involved in what we could call advertising. Maybe we'll call it marketing. But spending... Well, they haven't got to have spent a lot for this video. They probably did, because it looks like it's really well made. But you haven't got to spend a fortune to do these kind of things. So adding chess is perfect for those that don't want a game like Beach Buggy Racing 2. But now it's going to support the racing game is going to support the use of 2 game controllers. In the game's initial iterations, 2-player mode required the second player to use the on-screen controls, which was always just all right. So now, brilliant. The game will support the use of 2 game controllers. That does make it fair. And for those people who didn't like turning their steering wheel just a little bit because it made your front tyres rub on the floor just a little bit, you don't have to do that anymore. Let's talk, finally, before we get on to question of the week answers, about drag racing. I mentioned recently on the podcast how electric vehicles are being banned from drag strips under the auspices of safety, because we don't know if a battery's going to explode. Of course, it's worth pointing out that whenever an EV turns up to a drag strip, it takes all the fun away from everybody else there, because EVs are just better in every possible way, and they win. So, drag strips have taken to banning EVs under safety concerns, you understand. Yeah, I'm sure it is completely. So 2 stories today. We'll finish off with all about Tesla's owning the drag strip. The first one is a Tesla-powered kit car with dual motors, and an electric kit car has run the quarter mile in 9.3 seconds. Which is impressive. One of the fastest Tesla-powered cars ever made, says Electrek.co today. Over the last few years, the reports have been on Electrek about an Ottawa-based car tuner and car shop called Eurodyne, and Tap Auto building a factory... more trains. A factory 5818 kit car with a Tesla rear-wheel drive unit and 2 Chevy Volt battery packs. They are clever boys and girls when it comes to doing things with battery packs and drivetrains and all those kind of things. And now they have made what looks like a Tesla-powered 818 doing a 9.3 second quarter mile. That's our first as the trains. Goodbye. Brilliant. Just let that go. Final story today. And then we'll get on to question of the week. The electric dragster, which is breaking records. Racing legend Don Big Daddy Garlitz has counted more than 87 outings, but that's proved no reason for him to slow down. He recently beat his previously held record on a quarter-mile drag strip with a new dragster, and it's electric. And he did 189 miles per hour. So but this is a proper drag strip car. You know, the one that's sort of like a massive rear wheels and little skinny pram wheels on the front. Yeah, it's that. And so 2 happy drag stories to end the podcast today. Right, let's get on to question of the week this week. And I was asking you about combustion cars blocking EV chargers, but what can we constructively do to stop this happening? Nothing extreme was my request. We'll kick off with David's suggestion. David Partington says, I think this should start with rapid chargers that you usually park directly in front of. It should be feasible to have number plate recognition linked up to rapid chargers that read the registration of every car that pulls up in front, cross-references it with the DVLA, which here in the UK keeps a record of all cars registered, and flashes a message warning you that you could incur a fee of £50. The bonus would be that for EV drivers who've signed up to the relevant, operator, charge point operator, it would remove the need to faff about with cards, key fobs and smartphone apps. The camera knows who you are and you just plug in. Moving on to John, aka Beardy McBeardface. As a disabled driver, I'm aware that we have suffered from a similar issue to icing for many years. Whilst the simple answer is to camera or warden the chargers and fine EVs, non-EVs, in those bays. That said, my answer for disabled bays is to park across the back of the offender, lock the car, and limp off, or get on with getting your mobility scooter out of the back of the car. You're often greeted with a disgruntled car owner, says John. Right, that was not me. Did you hear that noise? Goodness me. I sat back in a chair. I don't know if the mic would have picked that up. It sounded like something rather rude. Let's move on to the next one. David Nye in Brisbane. Come on, man, focus. David Nye in Brisbane says, sadly, I'm afraid after 65 years of witnessing human behaviour, the only thing to stop this sort of behaviour is instant fines, like speed cameras. I don't think, for example, that any kind of shaming will work, which tends to occur to a certain extent with wheelie and disabled car park spaces. Carl Kramer says charging spots can have an electric eye if they detect a spot is taken, but not charging after 5 minutes. A big light or neon sign can flash saying this car is blocking a charger. Barry is next, and Barry Wolf says that longer charging cords that enable EVs to park a few spaces away or even enable EVs to block ICE vehicles are the answer, and active ticketing as well. Brian C. says laws against parking an ICE vehicle in an EV charging spot don't work. In my local area, the police will not respond to a report of this occurring. Well, some time ago, I had the idea of a sensor in the car that would be tied to a receiver in the charger, and only if a EV pulls up does the loud siren not go off. Would have been a good idea, but there's too many EVs and chargers in the world now. Jamie Hewitt Hunt says, you should employ a parking steward. That would create a job. It would make the charging situation easier. Confusion of how to use charge points would be gone. They could show you which app to use, how to pay, how to move the car when it's getting enough charge, and stopping fossil gobblers from icing. Edward Pertinez. Sorry, Edward. Here is the train going past that put me off. Here in Catalonia, I hardly find any ICE car parking in an EV charging spot. I assume that's because we paint the parking spot green. We are used not to parking in blue spots. That's for disabled or handicapped spaces. Hello to Daffyd. In an age where almost every shopping outlet's car park is either owned or managed by a third-party parking company, that's true. That's very true in this country. And hotels do it as well. Together with registration plate recognition, the company will issue a fine based on if you've parked a car in a charging spot. I've often wondered why they don't do something similar for parking in parent and young child or disabled bays, he says. And recently adding icing to the list. Inconsiderate people often only learn to change their behaviour if they're hurt. Well, Peter Bryn says, make it a ticketable and towable offence. We've got no shortage of meter maids or business chasing tow trucks in this world. Happy for a new revenue stream. Dana Pearson, like parking in a handicapped zone, it should be a $300 fine. If you block a space. If you block 3 spaces and you drive across them, you don't park considerately, a $900 fine. This would be quick revenues for cash-starved cities, encouraging ticketing when we call a phone number, and fines should be posted at all charging stations. Moving on to Lisa. Now, Lisa Allen says, I'm in a multiple sclerosis support group, and one of the hot topics has been people parking in handicapped spaces. Some local cities have started a program to train people to do citizen ticketing of cars, which are clearly not for the disabled. I think this would be a good deterrent for ICE vehicles too. Thank you, Lisa. But how do you feel about a citizen ticketer? Somebody who's not a member of maybe an official body or a police person fining you? Brian says the best way to block the space is with a green Evie cone. Physically blocking the bay is the best way, as drivers are too lazy to read signs and also too lazy to get out and move the thing. Evie drivers want a charge, so they will be out their car like lightning and move it. This is so true. This is so true. The charger that I use most in a supermarket has 4 little orange cones they put in front of the chargers. And you can tell because the EV drivers put them back in their space. I've even seen the parking warden who walks around our local Waitrose. It's quite a big car park, so I think Waitrose have their own guy, or it's a third party or something. I'm not sure, but always nice. Always have a little chat if he comes by and takes my registration, because we're allowed 2 hours parking in the whole car park. I've seen them move the cones out of the charging space, stack them 4 high, and put them behind a pillar. I didn't say anything because I hate confrontation, and I probably should have said something, but I was there, I'd parked my car, I was walking away, and I turned around and I saw him pick up the cones and take them away. Of course, I thought to myself, you're a total scumbag. I'm just not brave enough to go and actually have a conversation. Right, that was the chair again. That was definitely the chair. I'm actually going to get off this chair. This podcast today, if we get to the end, we're going to be lucky. Right, Jack Oakley says, Step 1, adopt international standards for EV charging spots and mandate the markings. Standard signage, painting the ground a certain colour, flashing solar-powered LED signs. It'll become familiar to everyone. Step 2, leverage local government to assist with education. My town has a newsletter and a webpage. Spread the word. And number 3, impose fines at a local level, making local government part of the solution. Andrew Jacobs says there should be an alarm and a flashing light on the charger. This would be activated if someone parked but didn't start charging within 5 minutes. The alarm would also go off after 30 minutes if a charging session had stopped but not unplugged. This would prevent people icing and people parking without charging. Sasha says, I think you had it right. A stiff fine would help, but not... not sure if you can count it as constructive, but it's effective. Signs are very clear and chargers usually further away, so there's no excuse. Maybe a $300 fine or donation even. John Lacey says, first of all, site EV charging spots in a location which is not a temptation for other drivers. Oh my goodness, John, you've literally hit the nail on the head here. Why? Even in car parks where I can understand if they put them near a substation or it's cheaper, you haven't got to dig up the road, there's less groundworks. High voltage cabling, I get, is expensive, okay? But even in car parks I've been to, where clearly the most convenient space is a long way away from anything other electrical, that's where they've put the EV chargers. And you think, oh, I wish they wouldn't do that. Leave those spaces for those who need it. Disabled drivers. You can have an automatic barrier arm that gives restricted access to EV charging, linked to the automatic license plate recognition system, he says. I like that. I like it. And finally, Paul says, put the chargers at the end of the car park away from the desirable spots. Tesla tends to do this with their superchargers at motorway service stations. Yes, they do. Yes, they really do. I don't often see superchargers iced. And he says, I spotted this at Asda in St. Austell today. Traffic cones at the entrance to the EV charging bays. Very busy car park. Bays right next to the store. None of them were iced. Pictures available on PlugShare. Thank you very much for getting 20 minutes in to this train wreck of a podcast today. New question set for... New question set for question of the week. Please get your answers in by Sunday and I'll read them out. As EVs become more popular, do you think there's still a camaraderie amongst EV drivers? Go back to long before I ever owned an EV, when they were few and far between, and when you saw one you got excited because you knew that you were part of a very, very exclusive club. But what about EV local clubs these days? There's more of those cropping up as well. So what do you think? There's arguments to be made both ways. As EVs get more popular, I've seen all sorts of mess. I saw a picture on Twitter today of a Tesla supercharging station that was just trashed, that was just like Coke bottles, McDonald's stuff that had all been just chucked out of a car window. Like, you don't know it was a Tesla driver, obviously. I mean, the person who took the picture could have faked it. I guess you've got to cover all options. But you think, oh, man, as EVs become more popular, the kind of people that buy them now, not so much early adopters, do you think there's still a camaraderie amongst EV drivers? Let me know your thoughts. Email hello@evnewsdaily.com or leave a comment on Facebook and YouTube. A quick mention for one of my friends of the podcast, Darren. Now, Darren Sant has started a new podcast himself, and he's called it Electric Dreams. And I'd love you to have a listen to it. It's available on YouTube and SoundCloud, so really convenient to get hold of. On SoundCloud, the Yorkshire EV Club have a channel, and on YouTube as well. If you search Electric Dreams, I'm sure you'll find it. Go and have a listen to that if you're after more things to listen to. Let's face it, I'm sure it's more professional than this podcast has been today. Right, well, thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to get any of the previous shows online, you absolutely can do. All the new ones come first and free and automatically by hitting subscribe in your podcast app. We make this show with the help of Patreon supporters. Thank you, Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, our premium partner, and latest partner is Avid Technology. If you would like to see what it's all about, patreon.com/evnewsdaily, and you can have a look at what the different levels are. You haven't got to by any means. I'll carry on making this show for free. There are 540 previous shows online for free. If you want to get any of those, by the way, a little mention for the archive. Come and say hi on the socials by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.